I wanted to spend a brief time today, now that we're back to our regularly scheduled masses, going over the precept of the church, or the commandment of the church, that we must attend Mass on Sundays and holy days of obligation, and why that's been lifted during this time so that we're not actually obliged to go to Mass on Sundays. I've got here the pocket edition of the Catechism of the Catholic Church. I don't know anyone who has a pocket this big, but they call it the pocket edition. We can remember the commandments were given to Moses by God on Mount Sinai. And that is the moral life, the bare minimum of the moral life within their own customs and traditions of Judaism. And then they had Jewish laws that were recorded in the book of Leviticus. So we already see that there are the divine laws that God gives, but then also the other laws and customs that become something obligatory within Judaism because it was practiced so frequently. So what is the first commandment? I am the Lord your God, and you shall have no other gods before me. The second one is you shall keep the Lord's day holy, or the Sabbath holy. Now for the Jews, this was the last day of the week. This was Saturday, or the Shabbat. For Christians, they began keeping that on the first day, Sunday, because that was the day of the Lord's resurrection. So it's the first day of the week, but it's also, if you will, the 8th day. So if you look and you say, well, Saturday is day number 7, our Lord recreates this temporal cycle with the 8th day. And so the resurrection and the new life. And so we begin each new week celebrating the new life that Christ has given us in the resurrection. Nowhere in the commandments and nowhere has God ever said, you must go to Mass on Sunday. But this is one of the precepts of the church. So we have the commandments of God, and then we have the precepts of the church. There are 5, 6, or 7, depending on what instructional catechism you look into. And there's 5 in the catechism as we have it today. So I'm looking at paragraph 2041 and following. But notice how it describes the precepts of the church. The precepts of the church are set in the context of a moral life bound to and nourished by the liturgical life and the ecclesiastical life. The obligatory character of these positive laws, decreed by the pastoral authorities, is meant to guarantee to the faithful the very necessary minimum in the spirit of prayer and moral effort, in the growth and love of God and of neighbor. So notice that these precepts are not given by God, they're given by the church and represent the bare minimum that our life requires to be nourished by the life of God through the sacraments in the church. And so the first precept of the church to attend Mass on Sundays and holy days of obligation comes from the ancient practice of the Christian community gathering together on Sunday, always on Sunday, many times in the early church around the local bishop, and participating in the celebration of the breaking of the bread, the celebration of the holy sacrifice of the Mass, and the offering of the Eucharist. The first precept, you shall attend Mass on Sunday days and on holy days of obligation, and rest from servile labor. Right? Some people will say, well, I had an extra load of laundry to do. Okay, laundry with our current machines, our modern machines, is not really servile work. It's talking about breaking a sweat, digging a ditch, busting up rocks, things that normally, if we had the means, we would pay someone else to do. That's what servile work means. So this first law of the church. Now, that means that every Catholic is bound to go to Mass on Sundays and holy days of obligation. There's 3 ways, if you will, out of this, 3 general ways. First of all is because we foresee, for some extraordinary reason, that we won't be able to go to Mass. So our boss sends us on a business trip and says, I need you on the other side of the country by Sunday night, and he's telling you this on Saturday night, to close this deal. We should be able to contact our pastor and say, Father, something came up. I will not be able to attend Mass. Can you dispense me for this Sunday? Right? Or if somebody works as a surgeon, and they know that they have they're on the emergency call every single weekend, right? Because that's just the lot that they drew. Then they would go to their pastor and say, Father, I'm a necessary worker, right? There's no one else who can do this work. I'm on the weekend shift for the next 2 months. May I be dispensed from the Sunday obligation to go to Mass? The priest is a minister of the church, is a pastoral authority, and he has the permission, if the bishop has given it to him, and we have in this diocese, to tell that person, that's fine. You don't have to go to Mass until this situation resolves itself, or because of this business trip. So you're not incurring a sin. He might then also say, but please attend Mass on Tuesday when you get back, in order to keep their lives nourished. It doesn't mean that that replaces their obligation, nor does him saying, please be at Mass on Tuesday, make Tuesday the day of obligation. That's already been dispensed of. He's just looking out for the pastoral nourishment of the soul of getting to Mass. And so that's one way. But then the second way would be if we dispense, in a certain way, dispense ourselves. Two ways that that can happen. One is a moral impossibility of going to Mass, right? Like the church cannot command something impossible. God can't command something impossible. So that would be a snowstorm, flooding, trees down and we can't get our cars through the neighborhood onto the main roads, whatever that be, some natural disaster, something that really prevents us from going, or someone who is a senior and has their license taken away from them because their eyesight has gotten so bad, there's no one to take them, right? In those situations, there's a moral impossibility. There's no way to overcome that on my own. Then the third way is because of risk to one's own health or safety, or someone else's health and safety. So, for example, in this time, right, now that we believe in communicable diseases, if someone wakes up with a sore throat, a runny nose, and they're coughing, and they feel bad, right, they should assume that they have either some virus or bacteria. We're not even talking coronavirus. I just mean before all this got started, if they woke up feeling bad and they kind of get up and around and they're still feeling bad, they should think to themselves, I could have something that I could give to someone else. Even though I feel well enough that I could make the effort and go, I should also keep in mind the safety and the health of others, maybe someone who's at risk, immunocompromised. In that way, the person is dispensed from Sunday Mass in order to keep safe to safeguard their own safety and health and the safety and health of others. So that precept of the church, we don't have to meet that. But we still have to keep the Lord's Day holy. We still have to find some way, because the church can dispense us from the obligation to go to Mass, or our own situation can prevent us from going without incurring sin. But God has not dispensed us from keeping the Lord's Day holy. What will we do? We don't even have to watch Mass if that's not our thing, but what will we do in a special way to honor the Lord on Sunday and on those special solemnities where we're normally obliged to go to Mass? Now, in the context that we have now, the bishops, many of the bishops, our bishop included, lifted that obligation so that people don't feel like they're letting the church down, or that they're letting down our Lord, or that they're not, living up to what they're called to as Christians. And even if the bishop said, okay, we're now obliged again, if someone who takes care of their parents is afraid to pick up anything in crowds, then they're safeguarding their parents' safety by not going to Mass. Now, we can abuse that. We can wake up with a little sniffle and go like, oh, I got a sniffle. It looks like I'm off this Sunday. It doesn't work that way. It's a legitimate and prudent reason. If I'm not able to make it to Mass because I'm prevented from going, or in order to safeguard my own health and the health and safety of others, then I still need to find some special way to honor the Lord, to make Sunday different, and to worship, because that's the commandment of God. And the church has lifted her commandment. And so in these days, as some people are making their way back to Mass, as some people are not, because of their own reasons of health and safety, it's not a time for us to judge. Those who feel like they're willing to risk anything. I mean, you could catch a common cold just walking about, but might fear the severity of this virus for themselves or people that they're in frequent contact with. They can make those decisions. But those who are healthy, who hunger for the Lord and can say, this is a risk worth taking, they're going to come. And people feel safe at the church. And so those people who are choosing to come back, they're kind of looking in going, is this, yeah, I think I can enter into this, into the church again and participate in the worship of the Lord. Know that whether you're coming back to church, whether you're choosing to stay home, you're in my prayers. And so if I see you this weekend, great, I look forward to it. If you're still sheltering in place at home, you continue to be my prayers, united to that sacrifice of praise, and know that the Lord holds you close. God bless you.